on a freezing night at the end of the month. Single dad. Henry Calder clutched a cheap takeout box, the last meal of the day for him and his son. But when he saw a shivering little girl begging for food on the sidewalk, he didn't hesitate. He gave away his entire portion to the child. Henry had no idea that a few hours later, inside a luxurious mansion, he would face the girl's mother, billionaire CEO Ingrid Hale, who was desperately searching for her lost daughter. And the moment she met Henry, changed all three of their lives forever. Henry Calder was 36 years old, tall and broad-shouldered with gentle eyes that seemed too kind for the hardships he'd endured. He'd once worked construction, building skyscrapers for other people's dreams while his own remained unfinished. After his wife died 3 years ago, leaving him alone with their son, Henry became a man who wore exhaustion like a second skin. Every morning started at 5, delivering packages in the pre-dawn darkness. By noon, he was fixing appliances in strangers' basements. Evenings found him hauling boxes in a warehouse until his arms trembled. 3 jobs barely kept the lights on in their cramped studio apartment. But Henry never complained. He had a principle that guided every decision, whispered to himself when the world felt too heavy even in poverty. Kindness costs nothing. His son Leo was 8 years old, with his mother's bright eyes and his father's stubborn optimism. The boy understood more than children his age should understood that birthday parties were a luxury, that new shoes came only when the old ones split completely, that sometimes dinner was just rice with soy sauce. But Leo never whined. Instead, he asked questions that broke Henry's heart and rebuilt it in the same breath. "Dad, why do we always share with others when we don't have much ourselves?" The boy's curiosity about goodness, even when surrounded by scarcity, reminded Henry why he kept going. Tonight, the winter air cut through their thin jackets as they walked home from the warehouse. Henry carried 2 styrofoam containers, cheap fried rice and vegetables from the corner deli. It was all he could afford after this morning's news the warehouse had laid him off. No warning, no apology, just a dismissal slip and a mumbled budget cuts. These 2 boxes represented their entire dinner, possibly their last decent meal until he found another job. The girl appeared without warning, a small figure huddled against a storefront window. She couldn't have been older than 6 or 7, her face smudged with dirt, her pink jacket torn at the sleeves. But what struck Henry wasn't her appearance, it was her eyes. They were bright, intelligent, the kind of eyes that spoke of a good home and loving parents. This child didn't belong on the streets. "Please," the little girl whispered, her voice barely audible above the wind. "I'm so hungry. Do you have anything—" Henry stopped. Leo tugged at his sleeve, and father and son exchanged a look. The boy nodded, understanding without words what was about to happen. Henry knelt down, meeting the girl at eye level, and opened both containers. "Here, sweetheart. Take both. Eat slowly. Okay." The child's eyes widened. "Both? But what about you?" "We already ate." Henry lied with a smile that felt like swallowing glass. "Right. Leo. Right, Dad," Leo said softly, pressing closer to his father's side. Across the city, in a penthouse office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a million lights. Ingrid Hale was unraveling. At 33, she'd built an empire technology companies, real estate developments, chains of upscale restaurants. Forbes called her the Ice Queen of Manhattan, a woman who turned every venture into gold, who never showed weakness, who commanded respect through sheer brilliance and ruthless efficiency. But right now, the Ice Queen was melting. Her daughter Amanda was missing. The call had come 2 hours ago. Her driver, stammering and terrified, explained that during a routine grocery stop, Amanda had somehow slipped out of the SUV unnoticed. Security footage showed the 6-year-old walking away from the supermarket, disappearing into the crowded evening streets. Every minute since then had been agony. Ingrid had mobilized her security team, her personal investigators, everyone she could trust. But she couldn't go to the police, not yet. The reason sat like a stone in her chest. Her ex-husband, Corbin Hale, was fighting for custody. The man had been abusive during their marriage, subtle in ways that left no bruises but carved deep wounds into her psyche. She'd finally escaped 2 years ago, obtained a restraining order, sole custody. But Corbin had money, lawyers, connections. If word got out that she'd lost their daughter, even for a few hours, he'd use it to paint her as unfit. The custody case would be reopened. She'd lose Amanda forever. So Ingrid suffered in silence, pacing her office while her security chief Clinton Reeves coordinated the search from multiple command centers. Her father, George Whitmore, a man whose wealth dwarfed even hers, had offered to deploy additional resources. But Ingrid refused. The fewer people who knew, the better. On the screen of her laptop, security footage from traffic cameras played in a loop. There, Amanda, walking past a corner store. There, Amanda, sitting on a bench. There, Amanda, approaching a tall man and a young boy. "Find them," Ingrid whispered to Clinton through the phone. "Find my daughter." Back on the street, Amanda was crying, not loud, wailing sobs, but quiet tears that spoke of exhaustion and fear and relief all mixed together. She'd eaten 1 container of rice already, practically inhaling it, and now she clutched the second one like a treasure. "You're nicer than all the rich people I ever met," Amanda said suddenly, looking up at Henry with those 2 knowing eyes. Henry blinked. The way she spoke, the grammar, the articulation, this wasn't a street kid. This was a child from privilege. "Where are you from, honey? Where's your mom?" "I got lost," Amanda admitted, her voice breaking. "The car. I got out and nobody noticed. I tried to find her, but everything looked the same. I was so scared." "Why didn't you ask a police officer?" The girl's face crumpled. "My dad. If the police find me, they'll call my dad. He's not a good person. Mom says we have to stay away from him. I don't want him to find me." Leo, who'd been quiet until now, suddenly grabbed his father's hand. "Dad, we can't let her sleep outside. It's too cold." Henry's mind raced. Every instinct told him to take this child to the authorities, let them sort it out. But her fear of her father, the genuine terror in her voice, he knew that kind of fear. His own childhood had been marked by similar shadows, and something in Amanda's desperate eyes made him think of Leo, made him imagine his son alone and frightened on strange streets. "What's your name?" Henry asked gently. "Amanda." "Amanda, I'm Henry. This is Leo. Would you like to come with us tonight just until morning, until we can figure out how to find your mom safely?" The little girl nodded so hard her whole body shook. "Yes, please. Thank you." As they walked toward Henry's apartment, none of them noticed the traffic camera mounted on the light post, recording every moment. In her office, Ingrid's phone buzzed. Clinton's voice came through, controlled but urgent. "Ma'am, we have her. She's alive and appears unharmed. A man, his name is Henry Calder, age 36. Address in the lower Bronx. No criminal record. Low income. Works multiple jobs. He gave her food. Ma'am, our contact at the deli confirmed he bought 2 meals and gave both to Amanda." Ingrid's knees buckled. She grabbed the edge of her desk, relief and new fear washing over her in waves. "Is she with him now?" "Yes, they're heading to his residence. It's a small studio in a rent-controlled building. Ma'am, initial assessment suggests he's not a threat, appears to be genuine assistance." "I'm going there," Ingrid said immediately. "Now." "Ma'am, The weather, there's a severe storm warning. The roads... I don't care if it's the apocalypse. Clinton, my daughter is out there. Prepare the car. Henry's apartment was exactly what someone making poverty wages in New York would have: one room divided by creativity into sleeping area, living space, and tiny kitchenette. The walls needed paint. The furniture came from sidewalk finds and thrift stores, but it was clean. And more importantly, it was warm. Amanda sat on Leo's bed, the only bed, since Henry slept on a pull-out couch wrapped in a blanket that had seen better days. Leo had given her his favorite stuffed bear without being asked. Now the two children sat together, Leo explaining how to play cards with a battered deck missing the 3 of diamonds. Henry stood at the small window, watching the storm roll in. Rain lashed against the glass. Thunder rumbled in the distance, each boom louder than the last. His stomach growled. He'd told Amanda they'd already eaten. But the truth sat heavy in the room. There was no food left. The cabinet held instant noodles, maybe enough for the kids' breakfast if he stretched it. But for now, for tonight, his hunger was a secret he'd keep. His phone rang. Unknown number. Henry almost didn't answer, but something made him press accept. "Mr. Calder," a woman's voice, professional but strained. "This is Ingrid Hale. You have my daughter." Henry's breath caught. The name was familiar. He'd seen it in newspapers, magazines left in the warehouse break room. Ingrid Hale, the billionaire, the Ice Queen. "She's safe," Henry said immediately. "I promise you, she's safe. I found her on the street, hungry and scared. I couldn't leave her there." There was a pause, and when Ingrid spoke again, her voice cracked. Has she eaten?" "Yes. She had dinner. She's with my son now, playing cards. I'm coming to you. My security chief has your address. Mr. Calder, The words seemed to cost her everything. "Thank you. Thank you for protecting my daughter when she needed it most." The line went dead. Henry looked at Amanda, who'd fallen asleep mid-game, her head resting against Leo's shoulder. His son looked up at him, worry in his young eyes. "Dad, is she in trouble?" "No, buddy. Her mom's coming to get her. Everything's going to be okay." But even as he said it, Henry felt the weight of different worlds about to collide. The storm hit with biblical fury. Rain didn't fall, it attacked, turning streets into rivers, overwhelming drainage systems, transforming the city into a waterlogged maze. Ingrid sat in the back of her armored SUV, Clinton driving with white knuckles while 2 more security vehicles followed behind. Every minute felt like an hour. Every mile seemed to stretch into 10. "Ma'am, we should wait until..." Clinton began. "Drive," Ingrid commanded. She'd changed from her designer suit into jeans and a simple sweater, as if shedding her armor might make this nightmare less real. In her mind, Amanda's face smiled up at her from 1,000 memories. Birthday parties, first days of school, quiet mornings making pancakes. All those moments felt fragile now, like they could be stolen away. They arrived at Henry's building just before midnight. It was a squat, weathered structure that had probably been impressive in the 1950s but now sagged under decades of neglect. Ingrid didn't see any of that. She only saw the window on the 3rd floor with a light still burning. Clinton tried to stop her from going up alone, but Ingrid pushed past him. She took the stairs 2 at a time, her heart hammering, her hands shaking. When she reached apartment 307, she paused, gathering herself. Then she knocked. Henry opened the door. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. He saw a woman whose perfectly arranged mask had cracked, revealing raw maternal fear. She saw a man whose kind eyes and calloused hands told a story of hard-won gentleness. "Is she..." Ingrid began. Henry stepped aside. Amanda lay on the narrow bed, Leo curled protectively beside her, both children wrapped in that threadbare blanket. They were sleeping, Amanda's small hand clutching the stuffed bear. Ingrid's carefully maintained composure shattered. She pressed her hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. You kept her safe." "I have a son," Henry said quietly. "I couldn't do anything else." Ingrid moved to the bed, kneeling beside it. She touched Amanda's hair with trembling fingers, and the little girl stirred, opening her eyes. For a heartbeat. Confusion clouded Amanda's face. Then recognition dawned. "Mommy." "Yes, baby, I'm here. I'm right here." Amanda sat up and threw her arms around Ingrid's neck. Mother and daughter held each other, rocking slightly, and Ingrid whispered words of love and relief into her child's hair. Leo woke up too, rubbing his eyes, and Henry gently guided his son away from the bed to give them privacy. After several minutes, Ingrid pulled back, wiping her eyes. She looked at Amanda carefully, checking for injuries, for signs of trauma. "Did you eat dinner, sweetheart?" "Yes, Mommy. Henry gave me his food. He and Leo gave me both boxes." Ingrid turned slowly to look at Henry. Her gaze traveled across the tiny apartment, landing on the empty takeout bag in the trash, the bare cabinets visible through the open kitchenette. Understanding dawned like a cold sunrise. "Both boxes," she repeated softly. That was your dinner? Both of you?" Henry shrugged, trying to dismiss it. "We weren't that hungry." "Dad hasn't eaten since breakfast," Leo said with the brutal honesty of children. "We were supposed to eat those boxes tonight." The room fell silent, except for the rain hammering against the windows. Ingrid stared at Henry. This stranger who'd given away his last meal to a child he didn't know, who'd taken that child into his home despite having nothing himself. She'd spent years surrounded by wealth, by people who'd do anything for money, who measured relationships in transactions and opportunities. But here was someone who'd chosen hunger over letting a little girl go without. "Why?" The word came out barely above a whisper. "Why would you do that for someone you've never met?" Henry met her eyes, and his answer was simple, devastating in its honesty. "Because when my son is hungry, I hope someone would help him. That's all. That's what I hope the world is." Ingrid felt something crack open inside her chest. Some calcified chamber she'd sealed shut years ago when learning that kindness was weakness, that trust was liability. This man, this poor, exhausted, beautiful-souled man had shown her a truth she'd forgotten, that real wealth had nothing to do with bank accounts. Amanda yawned and nestled against her mother. "Mommy, Henry and Leo are nice. Can they come visit us?" Before Ingrid could answer, 3 sharp knocks sounded at the door. Henry frowned and opened it. A tall man in an expensive coat stood in the hallway, his handsome face twisted with barely contained rage. Behind him, Clinton appeared, looking alarmed. "Ma'am," he pushed past the building entrance before we could— "Corbin," Ingrid said, standing slowly, placing herself between her ex-husband and Amanda. "How did you find us?" Corbin Hale smiled, the kind of smile that never reached his cold eyes. "You think I don't monitor every move you make the moment your driver reported Amanda missing? My people were alerted. I've been tracking the situation all night." His gaze shifted to Henry, assessing and dismissing him in one sweep. "And this is the man who lured my daughter?" "I didn't lure anyone," Henry said calmly, though his hands had curled into fists. "I helped a scared little girl. A likely story. A poor single dad finding a billionaire's daughter convenient. Isn't it? How much were you planning to demand $1 million to?" "Corbin, that's enough," Ingrid said, her voice steel. "He saved her. He protected her." "Protected her?" Corbin laughed, sharp and cruel. "You lost our daughter. You let her wander the streets like a stray dog, and when your incompetence puts her in danger, you want me to thank this—" He gestured contemptuously at Henry. "This nobody for taking advantage?" Leo stepped forward, all 8 years of him vibrating with indignation. My dad isn't nobody. He's the best person you'll ever meet. And he gave away his dinner even though we're poor and you're just mean. Corbin's face darkened. How dare you? Enough! Ingrid's shout cut through the room like a blade. She'd spent 2 years afraid of this man, cowed by his legal threats and social connections. But standing here, in this humble apartment where real kindness lived, she felt something shift. You will not speak to that child. You will not speak to Mr. Calder. And you will not use this situation to hurt me or our daughter. I'm calling my lawyers, Corbin said coldly. This incident proves what I've been saying. You're an unfit mother. Amanda belongs with me. No. Amanda's cry was piercing. She clung to Ingrid, her small body shaking. I don't want to live with you. You're scary. You yell at Mommy. Corbin's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something dark underneath. You've poisoned her against me. You did that yourself, Ingrid said quietly. With every raised voice, every threat, every time you made her feel small and afraid. This ends tonight. Corbin, I have security footage showing Amanda got separated accidentally. I have witnesses, including Mr. Calder, who can testify that she was well cared for. But most importantly, I'm done being afraid of you. Clinton had moved closer, flanked by 2 more security personnel. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Corbin looked around the room at Ingrid's determined face, at Amanda's tearful defiance, at Clinton's imposing presence, and seemed to calculate his odds. But his eyes, when they landed on Henry, held pure malice. This isn't over, he said. Then he turned and stalked out. The door closed for several seconds. Nobody moved. Then Ingrid sank into the old couch, pulling Amanda onto her lap. I'm sorry, she whispered to Henry. I'm so sorry you had to witness that. Is he always like that? Leo asked, his voice small. Ingrid nodded. Yes, but he can't hurt us anymore, can he? Mommy? No, baby, he can't. But even as she said it, Ingrid felt a creeping unease. Corbin had found them too easily, tracked them too perfectly. He was planning something. Her instinct proved correct the next morning. Ingrid had arranged for Henry and Leo to stay at a hotel she'd covered the cost, insisting it was the least she could do, and was back in her penthouse when Clinton called with news that made her blood run cold. Ma'am, we intercepted communications. Corbin filed an emergency custody motion early this morning, claiming you endangered Amanda by allowing her to be with an unknown man. But there's more. He's planning to take Amanda directly from school today. His lawyers have prepared paperwork claiming it's a protection order. He can't do that. He has no legal right. He's arguing that your judgment is impaired. And ma'am, there's something else. Our sources indicate he's not planning to return Amanda through legal channels. He's arranged transportation to his property in the Cayman Islands. If he gets her there... Ingrid's office tilted. The Caymans had different custody laws, fewer extradition agreements. If Corbin got Amanda out of the country, she might never see her daughter again. Alert Amanda's school. Full lockdown. Nobody picks her up except me or you personally. Already done, ma'am, but Corbin knows about our security protocols. He's been watching, learning. I think he might try something unconventional. Ingrid's mind raced. He'll try to intercept her somewhere public, somewhere he can claim it was a coincidence. The grocery store where she got separated, he'll know we have to go back there eventually. Or... Her eyes widened. Henry's apartment. He knows where Henry lives. Why would he target Mr. Calder? Because Corbin needs a villain in his story. If he can paint Henry as the real danger, claim there was a kidnapping plot. Clinton swore softly. I'll send a team to secure Mr. Calder's building immediately. But they were already too late. Henry had insisted on returning to his own apartment despite Ingrid's generous offer to extend his hotel stay. He had jobs to search for, responsibilities he couldn't abandon. Leo had school, life, as much as it had been disrupted by last night's drama, had to resume some pattern of normalcy. They were walking up the stairs to their floor when Henry noticed something off. His apartment door, which he'd carefully locked, stood slightly ajar. His hand shot out, stopping Leo on the landing below. "Stay here," Henry whispered. "Don't move." He pushed the door open slowly. Inside, his small apartment had been ransacked, drawers pulled out, couch cushions scattered, his few possessions tossed carelessly across the floor. But that wasn't what made his blood freeze. Corbin Hale stood in the middle of the chaos, holding a manila folder. "Good morning. Mr. Calder, we need to talk about the abduction of my daughter." "I didn't abduct anyone. Get out of my home." "Your home." Corbin smiled that terrible smile again. "You mean this hovel I've been reading about you? Henry, high school dropout, series of low-wage jobs. Wife died under suspicious circumstances, car accident. They called it. But investigators noted inconsistencies. Tell me, how desperate were you? Desperate enough to see opportunity when a billionaire's daughter appeared." Henry felt rage building in his chest, but he kept his voice level. "You're lying. My wife's death was an accident. The police closed the case. Did they, or did they simply lack resources to investigate thoroughly?" Corbin held up the folder. "I can reopen investigations. Henry, I have lawyers who can make your life very, very difficult. Criminal charges, custody reviews for Leo, yes, I looked into that too. A father with your financial instability might face questions about his fitness to parent." The threat was clear. Corbin had researched, planned, weaponized every vulnerability. And the worst part, Henry knew from bitter experience that money could indeed twist narratives, that poverty made you guilty until proven innocent in the eyes of the law. "What do you want?" Henry asked quietly. "Sign this." Corbin produced a document. "It's a statement saying Ingrid paid you to take Amanda, that this was a planned event to make me look bad. Sign it, and I'll leave you alone. Refuse, and I'll destroy you and take your son." Henry stared at the paper. His hands trembled. He thought about Leo, waiting on the stairs. Thought about the boy's bright future dimming if they got caught in a legal nightmare. Thought about how easy it would be to just sign, to save themselves. Then he thought about Amanda's terrified voice saying she didn't want to live with her father. Thought about Ingrid's desperate relief when she'd found her daughter. Thought about his own principle, even in poverty. Kindness costs nothing. "No," Henry said. Corbin's expression darkened. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe, but I'm not making the wrong choice. Get out." For a moment, Henry thought Corbin might actually strike him, but then Clinton's voice echoed up the stairwell. "Mr. Hale, you need to leave this building immediately." Corbin's smile turned vicious. "Fine, but you'll regret this. Henry, you had a chance to protect your son. Remember that when everything falls apart." He brushed past Clinton and his security team, disappearing down the stairs. Henry sagged against the wall, adrenaline draining away, leaving him shaking. "Mr. Calder," Clinton said, "we need to get you and Leo somewhere safe. Corbin Hale is attempting to take Amanda out of the country. We have reason to believe he might use you as leverage, claim you're an accomplice in his narrative." Henry looked around his ransacked apartment, at the life he'd tried so hard to build lying in ruins. "What do I do?" "Come with us. Ms. Hale wants to ensure your safety while we resolve this situation." By evening, the situation had escalated beyond anyone's control. Corbin had played his final card. He'd gone to the media with a carefully constructed story. News outlets ran with the salacious headline, Billionaire CEO's daughter found with homeless man custody battle explodes. The story painted Henry as a suspicious figure, Ingrid as a negligent mother, and Corbin as a concerned father fighting for his daughter's safety. Social media erupted. Public opinion, always hungry for drama, turned ugly. Outside Ingrid's office building, protesters held signs. Investigate child services. Rich people think they're above the law. Inside a safe house arranged by Clinton, Henry watched the news coverage with growing horror. His face grainy security footage from the traffic camera played on loop. Reporters had found his address, interviewed neighbors who said things like, kept to himself, and seemed off. Leo, too young to fully understand but old enough to sense disaster, pressed close to his father's side. "Dad, are we in trouble?" Before Henry could answer, Ingrid burst into the room. She'd been on the phone for hours, mobilizing lawyers, investigators, every resource at her disposal. Now she sank into a chair across from Henry, exhaustion written in every line of her face. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. Corbin is using you to get to me, and I—" "Stop," Henry interrupted gently. "I made my choice. I'd make it again." Ingrid looked at him with something like wonder. "How can you be so calm? He's destroying your reputation, your life." "Because the alternative was signing a lie that would let him take Amanda, and I couldn't do that, not even to save myself." Henry managed a tired smile. "Besides, reputation isn't as important as some people think when you don't have much to lose anyway." The words hung in the air. Ingrid felt something shift in her chest again. That same crack that had opened last night growing wider. This man had given away his last meal, had stood up to threats, had protected not just Amanda, but the truth itself, even when it cost him everything. "I won't let him win," Ingrid said quietly. "I promise you, Henry, I won't let him destroy you." The resolution came from an unexpected source. Rosalind Grant, Henry's neighbor, a woman who'd harbored a quiet crush on her kind-hearted neighbor for months, had been paying attention. When Corbin ransacked Henry's apartment, Rosalind's nosiness turned into something valuable. She'd filmed the entire exchange through her door's peephole using her phone. The video was damning. Corbin admitting to lies, threatening Henry, attempting extortion. Clinton's team verified its authenticity, and within hours, Ingrid's lawyers had filed motions in family court, obtained restraining orders, and delivered copies to every major news outlet. The media narrative flipped overnight. "Abusive ex-husband frames Good Samaritan" ran the corrected headlines. Public outrage, so fickle and fierce, turned its fury on Corbin within 48 hours. His company's stock had dropped. His social circle distanced themselves. His lawyers quietly recommended he drop all custody claims and leave the country for a while. The final hearing was brief. The judge, an older woman with steel-gray hair and no patience for nonsense, reviewed the evidence and made her ruling Ingrid retained full custody. Corbin's visitation rights were permanently revoked. He'd pay substantial child support but would have no contact with Amanda without court supervision. Corbin Hale, for all his money and connections, had lost. 3 weeks later, on a much warmer evening, Henry answered his door to find Ingrid and Amanda standing in the hallway. His apartment had been cleaned, the ransacked mess put right. He'd even found a new job. Ingrid had offered him a position as head of security for her residential properties, a role that paid more than his 3 previous jobs combined and came with benefits, including Leo's school tuition. "Hi," Ingrid said, holding up 2 large bags from an expensive restaurant. "I brought dinner. I thought maybe we could eat together. As friends." Henry smiled, stepping aside to let them in. "Friends sounds good." "Sounds—" Amanda ran to Leo, already pulling out a board game she'd brought. The 2 children settled on the floor, chattering happily, Henry and Ingrid moved to the small kitchenette, unpacking containers of food, real food, not cheap takeout, but somehow it tasted better because of the company. "How are you adjusting to the new job?" Ingrid asked. "It's good. Different. I'm not used to having regular hours, or health insurance, or—" He laughed softly. "Or being able to buy groceries without calculating every dollar. You deserve it. You deserve all of it and more." Henry shook his head. "I didn't do anything special. Ingrid, I just did what anyone should do." "That's where you're wrong," Ingrid said quietly. "Most people wouldn't have. Most people would have walked past Amanda, or would have signed Corbin's lies, or would have taken the money I offered the first night and disappeared. But you didn't. You kept choosing kindness, even when it cost you." She paused, gathering courage. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about hoping the world is kind when your son needs help, and I realized I want to help build that world, not just for Amanda and Leo, but for everyone." She pulled out a folder from her bag. "I'm starting a foundation. It'll provide emergency assistance to working families in crisis: food, shelter, legal help, whatever they need, and I'd like you to help run it, if you're interested." Henry stared at the folder, then at Ingrid. "You're serious?" "Completely. You understand what these families need because you've lived it, and you have the heart for it. The world needs more people like you. Henry. So I'm asking, will you help me?" Before Henry could answer, Amanda called out, "Mommy, can Henry and Leo come to our house for Christmas, please?" Ingrid looked at Henry, a question in her eyes that went beyond just dinner plans. "Would you like that? Coming to our house? Maybe not just for Christmas, but for other things too. Movie nights, Sunday dinners, She took a breath. "I'm not asking for anything specific. I'm not rushing anything, but I'd like to get to know you better. I'd like Amanda and Leo to keep being friends. I'd like that too," Henry said softly. "All of it." Amanda cheered. Leo pumped his fist in victory. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Henry felt something that had been absent from his life hope. Not desperate hope, not survival hope, but the gentle, warm hope that maybe tomorrow would be better than today. They ate dinner together. 4 people from 2 different worlds finding common ground in shared laughter and simple food. As the evening wound down, Amanda dozed off on the couch next to Leo. Ingrid prepared to carry her daughter out, but paused at the door. "Thank you," she said to Henry, "for giving away your last meal, for protecting my daughter, for showing me what real kindness looks like." Henry smiled. "Thank you for reminding me that kindness isn't wasted. That sometimes, when you give the best of yourself, you get something better back." "What did you get back?" Henry looked at Leo, sleeping peacefully with his new friend, looked at his clean apartment, his stable job, his future that suddenly seemed possible again, looked at Ingrid, this strong, brilliant woman who'd somehow become important to him in ways he was only beginning to understand. "Hope," he said simply. "I got hope back." 2 months later, on a cool spring evening, 4 people walked together down a tree-lined street. The amber glow of streetlights painted everything gold, turning ordinary pavement into something magical. Henry held Leo's hand. Ingrid held Amanda's. And between them, occasionally, their free hands would brush accidental touches that felt like promises of something not yet named but already precious. They weren't a family, not yet. Maybe not ever in the traditional sense. But they were something equally valuable. They were people who'd found each other in darkness and chosen to walk toward light together. Amanda swung between her mother and Henry, giggling. "Tell the story again. Mommy. Tell how you found me." Ingrid smiled. But this time the story didn't start with fear. "Once upon a time, on a very cold night, there was a little girl who got lost, and she met a man and a boy who gave her their last meal." Leo chimed in, adding details, and soon all four of them were laughing, turning tragedy into triumph, turning pain into the kind of story that ends with four people walking together beneath streetlights that gleam like fallen stars. Behind them, the city hummed with its million stories, its countless intersecting lives. Somewhere, people struggled. Somewhere, people suffered. But here, on this ordinary street corner, four people proved something simple and profound, that kindness ripples outward in ways we never see coming. That a single choice to give instead of keep can change everything. That, sometimes. When you think you're giving away your last meal, you're actually receiving your first bite of something better, a life transformed not by wealth or status, but by the simple courage to be good. The streetlights flickered, casting dancing shadows that looked almost like celebration. And if anyone had asked Henry Calder in that moment if he'd do it all again, give away that meal, face those threats, risk everything for a child he didn't know, his answer would have been immediate and certain. Yes. Always yes. Because that's what you do when you believe the world can be kind. You start by being kind yourself. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, the world answers back.